you want to dominate more games with your powerful utility on Brigitte, you've come to the right place, so let's get right into it. Brigitte, regarded as the strongest support Overwatch has to offer, is extremely impactful within all areas of the game. Equipped with her barrier shield and rocket flail, she can not only keep the team healthy with Inspire, but also suppress flankers and threats alike. With her strong utility, she has the ability to define the pace of the game by herself, but with great power comes a great deal of care, skill, and responsibility. That being said, what is this guide going to have that is different from something you'd find somewhere else? This is indeed a comprehensive guide, so there are definitely players from all over that will end up watching this video in the future. So I'm going to go really in depth with this character. Many guides go into detail about how Brigitte fits within ladder, which is perfectly reasonable. However, within this video, we will not only accomplish this, but also go in depth about how Brigitte fits into a scrim setting. In order to do this, allow me to introduce myself to you. My name is Paz, and I'm a top 500 flex support player. I recently played for the team Attack Mode that placed third in the open division that took place in February of 2021. I now currently play for my school's Division 1 team at Penn State. While I may not play Brigitte every single day, I have to understand how this character functions in order to react accordingly, especially when playing characters like Baptiste and Zenyatta along with her. This video will also be vetted intensely by Poketude, one of the coaches currently for Drifters, a team that recently played in Contenders. Poke is incredibly smart and taught me extensively about all of the supports during my time at Attack Mode, allowing me to create the previous guides for Ana, Baptiste, Moira, Zenyatta, and most recently, Lucio. I strongly recommend giving his Twitter a follow as he is heavily underrated, and as a coach pushing for Overwatch League, it'll help him out a lot. Moving on, throughout the guide, we will go over all of the concepts I have listed in the description in a staircase structure. For instance, with Brigitte's Flail, we will start with the basics and work our way up to the advanced concepts like understanding when it is time to play defensively or get aggressive with her damage. I suspect Brig may receive some changes within the coming year, and if she does, I will assess the changes and make amendments to the guide as needed if her playstyle changes, much like the Baptiste guide. I doubt her main playstyle will change much, but if it does, I do plan on making changes as needed. Wait until the end to make your judgment, but if you do learn something or find value in this guide, consider subscribing or giving the video a like. I appreciate you all, and with that out of the way, let's start with Brigitte's primary weapon, the Rocket Flail. The Rocket Flail is a powerful weapon that does 35 damage a hit. You can swing every 0.6 seconds, so it is pretty quick, allowing you to combo with different abilities like your Bash and Whipshot, but we will cover those abilities when we get there. The max range she can hit from is 6 meters, which allows her to hit enemies even if they aren't right up next to her face. Since the Flail is a melee weapon that doesn't have any ammo, there is really no reason for you to not be swinging passively when in close to mid-range combat. The only time you would not want to swing is if you are trying to hold shield or if you're trying to be quiet on a flank. But besides that, the stray damage you will find swinging can be quite useful sometimes, unless you are extremely far away when shielding would be a better option, which we will cover later in the guide. Lastly, the Flail has slightly longer horizontal range in the direction it's going. This functions a lot like Reinhardt's Rocket Hammer, just to a smaller scale. This will allow you to cleave more targets at once, multiplying your damage output. This is one of the harder things to be consistent about with Brigitte. However, we haven't covered the main reason to do the damage on Brigitte, and that is to trigger her passive, Inspire. Brigitte holds the strongest passive in the game, and it has the title for a good reason. Inspire heals within a 20-meter radius of Brigitte for 15 per second over 6 seconds, with the range visualized here. The bigger bubble is Inspire's radius, while the smaller one is Lucio's healing song. The ability is triggered, otherwise known as procced, by hitting a Whipshot or hitting someone with the Rocket Flail, but not her Shield Bash. Even though the passive has a duration of 6 seconds, it can be triggered again to reset the passive's uptime. This does not mean that it stacks, just that it merely resets the duration back to a full 6 every connection. Players do need to be within line of sight of Brigitte in order to receive the healing, meaning Inspire is blocked by shields as well as natural cover. This concept doesn't block the heals in the middle of Inspire's duration, however. For example, if Brig were to swing her Flail and hit a Reinhardt, a friendly Tracer would continue to be healed by Inspire so long as she was within line of sight of Brigitte when the strike was established, meaning Tracer could receive Inspire for 6 seconds and then go off on a flank outside of Inspire's range for that 6-second duration, reaping its effects. This interaction is similar to if you get hacked. As long as you have procced Inspire before you've been hacked, its effects will continue to function. Just keep in mind that you cannot re-proc Inspire once you're hacked. On paper, this might not seem like a lot, but in practice, it is absolutely broken. Consider the fact that this is an AoE heal applied to all teammates and does a total of 90 healing over 6 seconds. Add Pax into the mix along with her ultimate and the heals are anything but negligible. Proccing Inspire isn't what determines how aggressive you can be on Brigitte though, so killing yourself to maximize uptime is just not required. Whipshot, however, is a great way to keep your uptime on Brig high, which we will cover now. Brigitte's Whipshot deals 70 damage from up to 20 meters away, which is the same as her max Inspire range. Upon using the cooldown, she will throw her Flail, slowing her down by 50% until the Flail returns to her. Because she does throw the Flail, it is a projectile. It is incredibly important that you take the time to learn it so that you never miss a Whipshot. It is the only ability that requires precision in her kit, so it shouldn't be too difficult to master quickly. It cannot be eaten by Sigma's Grasp or Diva's Matrix, meaning they are good targets to Whipshot in order to proc Inspire. So what can her Whipshot be used for? The first thing her Whipshot can be used for is to keep her Inspire uptime optimized. Since it is only on a 4-second cooldown, you can, in theory, keep Inspire online for the entirety of the fight by only Whipshotting, all the while staying from a safe range, avoiding getting run over. However, you have to keep in mind that you realize that her Flail does knock enemies back, which is the second use of our Whipshot. Environmental kills are possible on Brigitte, but the knockback provided by Whipshot is commonly used for a very different purpose. Brigitte is commonly referred to as an anti-dive character, but that doesn't just come from her shield bash. The Whipshot has the ability to stop a Winston, Ball, or Diva right in their tracks. For example, Whipshot Winston when he's at the apex of his jump to send him backwards before he lands on your team. Bonking a Ball while he's in Fireball will send him in the opposite direction, and bonking a Diva after her jets are down will force her away from your team. While it is important to boop tanks away from your team, you have to make sure that you don't get too carried away with it. Sure, you could deal some extra damage, but the last thing you want to do is boop the target away from your team's effective range. Lucio isn't commonly paired with Brigitte, so it will be very hard to close the distance on targets you accidentally boop away. This is a problem even GM players have, so if you feel that you have Whipshot figured out, take a look to make sure you aren't hindering your team. Before we cover Brig's shield and shield bash, let's cover her single target healing ability, the Repair Pack. From a range of up to 30 meters, Brigitte can apply a healing pack for 110 healing for 2 seconds. Much like her Inspire, even if a player is max health at the start of the pack, if they do take damage within the 2 seconds, they will receive the healing from that pack. Therefore, packing a Tracer or Echo before an engagement could, in theory, give them effectively 250 to 300 HP within their duels, which makes a big deal. However, the healing doesn't store over the 2 seconds, it immediately applies. This means if your DPS engages and doesn't immediately take damage, you're missing out on healing. So it is important to use this concept in engagements where DPS are going to engage aggressively for a prolonged period outside of your line of sight. Generally, if a DPS is around 75 to 80% health, you should throw a pack to them, guaranteeing that you at least get something out of that pack. The healing pack isn't applied instantly, however. There is a slight delay between you throwing the pack and the person actually receiving it. Luckily, you don't have to aim it as it functions a lot like Zenyatta's Harmony Orb in application. The pack takes longer to connect though, the farther you are away. Even though the packs heal for a considerable amount, who should be receiving the packs in theory? In most compositions, the DPS and your other support are the other people that should be receiving the packs since you only hold 3 at a time with a regeneration time of 6 seconds. This isn't to say that you can't pack your Diva as she engages aggressively during the mid-fight if she is below her armor level. A pack like this could restore her armor before the engage, allowing her to take a bit more damage within the next skirmish. Just keep in mind that you are limited in your repair pack use, so it is important to perfect your resource management on Brigitte. The way she uses the ability might change in the future, especially given the direction of the recent content creator changes. Yes, this means that Zenyatta is responsible for healing tanks in Zen Brig compositions. Ball is pretty mobile on his own, and he shouldn't really be taking considerable damage that he can't just heal up with health packs around the environment. This might be a topic for another video to go in depth with, so if you are interested in seeing something like this, please let me know in the comments down below, as I feel it could help a lot of players out. Lastly, before we move on, it is important to note that putting 2 packs on a character does not make them heal twice as fast. All this does is apply 2 seconds to the healing duration. Much like Lucio's Amplify and Crossfade, it just makes sense to cover these abilities under one section. Brigitte's alternate fire produces a shield, like Reinhardt's but much smaller, as it only protects her character's area. With 250 HP, the barrier will regain 85 health per second after it has not been in use for 2 seconds. If the shield is completely broken, it will not be usable for 5 seconds. While the shield is out, Brigitte moves 30% slower. Keep this in mind when making rotations, as you won't always have to have your shield up to live. For example, the long-range pick threats requiring a shield when playing against a Sombra or Genji differ between that of a Widowmaker or Hanzo. Sometimes the faster movement speed is more beneficial. Since Brigitte is commonly played against the Tracer, keep in mind that you can block and absorb pulse bombs with your shield. Be careful with where the bomb is placed on your shield, however. If the bomb is in front of your shield, you will live so long as you don't drop your shield or the enemy team breaks the shield. If it gets stuck on the side of your shield, you are usually out of luck unless you drop the shield while your diva is DMing you, causing the bomb to fall out of existence. Shielding snipers so that they can take aggressive angles, or Zenyatta's charging their 5 orbs from a strong starting position can help your team find safe poke value. This value is commonly overlooked, but does a lot for your team. A quick teamfight win puts the ultimate economy on your side with 30 seconds off the clock for the enemy. Let's now cover how the bash functions and where that ability excels. The shield bash stuns enemies upon contact for 0.75 seconds. The max range for shield bash is slightly less than 7 meters and functions like a cone within 60 degrees in front of her. Much like on a sleep dart, you can bash players out of their ultimates. These ultimates include Reinhardt's, Sigma's, Cassidy's, Moira's, Lucio's, and a few others. Keep in mind that you don't cancel roaming ultimates like Genji's Blade and Soldier's Visor, so close the distance with caution. Even though stun is extremely helpful to keep your team alive, shield bash can also be used to get to different areas of the map quickly. Bash jumps are a thing, much like Moira's fade jump. The boundaries for this ability's mobility, though, are restrictive in comparison. A popular one is the Moth jump on Junkertown, as well as others on various maps. It is important to note that bash can be used to escape ultimates as well. All bashes aren't created equally, however. If you jump before you bash, you will actually travel farther as compared to bashing on the ground. You can use this technique to escape from ultimates like Sigma's Gravitic Flux and Mei's Blizzard. There is actually a code to practice this technique, as well as Whipshots encountering several different abilities within the game. The code will be in the description and is as follows: R5HER. Movement is important, but let's tie the bash back into its main use, which is to stun. If a stun connects with Doomfist's Punch, Reinhardt's Pin, Bob, or another bash, both entities will be stunned on the ground for 2 seconds, giving both teams enough time to capitalize, so make sure you communicate to your team if you choose to pull off this tech. Comboing bashes with ultimates like Shatter or Diva Bombs is common. However, it's difficult to perform as it takes insane coordination with your team and is rather niche. So how should you bash to keep your team alive within the neutral? Brig's main priority is to keep her friendly support alive as long as possible, but how does bash combo along with this? Whipshot is a great tool, but it doesn't do the job completely since you won't have it all the time. It is easier to understand where you will allocate resources if we identify a composition that you are playing against. Let's say you're playing against a currently popular Ball, Diva, Tracer, Sombra, Zenyatta, and Brigitte composition, and you are mirroring it with your team. That is, both sides are playing the same characters. Typically in this situation, you can Whipshot the ball away first, as he is the person creating the space. This will in turn prevent the enemy Diva from jumping in alone, allowing you to have your bash ready for the Tracer. This is the ideal situation. Bash is typically a moment-specific ability, and it is very hard to give a general foolproof tip compared to Whipshot. Just take away this. Whipshot goes to Ball or Winston first and then to Diva. Then, bash can vary. Rally is the most powerful ultimate in the game, turning the already powerful character of Brig into a raid boss. Upon casting the ultimate, Brig will apply 15 armor to her teammates every 0.5 seconds, with a cap of 100 armor overall if left undamaged. With a 10-second duration, Brig moves noticeably faster, allowing her to proc Inspire along with the armor bonus to her team, unless precise focus fire is made. There's a reason why pros think Rally is the strongest ultimate in the game. It can be used not only aggressively, but defensively as well. The fact that armor is being applied is crucial in order to truly understand this. You have to acknowledge the power of armor first. Armor in Overwatch functions differently than normal health. For every instance of damage, armor reduces damage by 5, but it cannot reduce it by more than 50%. In other words, armor halves any damage that is lower than 10, instead of taking away 5. So armor is extremely effective against characters with multiple pellets of damage like D.Va, Reaper, Tracer, Sombra, and Ball, but is really bad against characters like Widowmaker, Hanzo, and other characters that pack high damage in fewer shots. When the main meta compositions utilize characters like these, it only makes her rally even more effective, cutting damage by half. Again, this is with Inspire being constantly procced as well as repair packs being thrown around. The only way you truly counter a rally is if the Brig gets discorded and the enemy team converges on it, or if the enemy uses Torb's ultimate. So make sure to look out for situations like this, because you are priority number 1 when you rally as Brig. While it is very difficult to kill a Brig within Rally, the last thing you want is to get so aggressive to the point of feeding and you die. Understand that there are many openings to be made with Rally, but it doesn't make you completely invincible. Even Rally has an Achilles heel. Let's now shift away from Brigitte's kit and rather discuss how she fits into the big picture using win conditions. A win condition is a way in which a team can win a team fight. Obviously, there are many different possible win conditions for each and every team fight, but there are some that are more effective than others. That is, there are ways to win a team fight with a minimal amount of ultimates to get the maximum value needed. So let's talk about 2 compositions where Brigitte could be played, powerful win conditions within the compositions themselves, and how the win conditions interact with different comps. Let's first review a composition we have been consistently talking about throughout the guide, including characters Wrecking Ball, D.Va, Tracer, Sombra, Zenyatta, and Brigitte. Sometimes the Sombra is switched to Ashe or Echo depending on the map as well, but let's keep this as simple as possible. The composition wants to surround the enemy no matter what composition they are on, kiting the enemy's aggression backwards and then pushing when the opportunities arise. That is their basic win condition. Healing may look short, but with the mobility of the team, health packs are made readily available. Enemy spam is also extremely easy to avoid. In terms of ultimates, there aren't many strict combos, rather lots of solo value. Ball's mines create a big problem, splitting up the enemy immediately. EMP D.Va bombs can be devastating, but not necessarily required either. The team also has 2 support ultimates at their disposal, each one providing a lot of options. They would just have to make sure they don't use both of them at the same time. Brigitte allows for this composition to function, enabling the Zenyatta to do heavy damage and healing the team up constantly with her Inspire. Packs allow for her to make a lot of crucial duels easier, adding to her utility. With Rally, she can also allow the Zenyatta to get closer and deal even more damage without running the risk of dying easily. Brigitte is not only a sentinel, but an aggressive duelist when enabled by her team in the composition, converging on the enemy. She plays like Zen's bodyguard, walking forward to take advantageous positions with her team to converge with. The second composition we will cover is a common counter to the Zen Brig composition. It includes Orisa, D.Va, Torbjorn, Tracer, Baptiste, and Brigitte. The Torb can be swapped out for a Hanzo if the team wants to play to blow up the ball specifically. But in my opinion, the value the turret provides is really nice to support the backline. You may wonder why Sigma isn't being played over D.Va though. Sigma oftentimes gets overwhelmed by dive compositions, and the mobility provided by D.Va along with her defense matrix makes her a better pick into the current dive compositions. So this composition wants to play to poke out the enemy before they take the inevitable engagement, making it incredibly difficult to win for the enemy team. That is their basic win condition. Pulls can be comboed with many of the ultimates within this composition, like Pulse Bomb, D.Va Bomb, Window, and even Torb's Molten Core. But what is more important is the insane survivability this composition provides against dive. Brigitte makes Baptiste's job in this composition much easier. The enemy is going to look to either force out Immortality Field early or simply overwhelm the enemy. So it is important that you use your utility in the correct order to keep DPS and tanks like Winston, Ball, and D.Va away from him. Also understand when it is time to switch though. If the enemy tricks you and ends up running a Brawl composition, switching to Zen and Sigma would be the better play, allowing for you to create more damage opportunities. Brigitte functions like a bodyguard, except plays to take space less aggressively compared to the Zen composition. So how does your playstyle change depending on the team comp you were against? In this case, Ball D.Va versus an Orisa D.Va comp. In the Ball D.Va composition, Brigitte can play a bit more aggressive in her pathing, considering there isn't as much backline pressure to worry about. Only the Tracer and D.Va are a big threat to your Zen, and in order to become activated, you have to get close once your team surrounds them. It's important to wait for that moment though, and to not push too early. Walking in immediately will get you killed if your teammates can't clean up from behind. Understand that your first role is to be a bodyguard, but in order to build upon that, you have to look for aggressive opportunities when they arise. This paves your way to victory and is made possible due to Zenyatta's current damage potential. Add Harmony Orb on top of Inspire healing, and it's game over. On the flip side, Brigitte has a lot to worry about, including booping away the ball and bashing the Tracer away from the Baptiste. Life isn't too hard, however, so long as you stay within the line of sight of your Torb turret, which applies a lot of pressure to the enemy DPS. This makes your job a lot simpler, but still not incredibly easy. If you're still confused on this subject, let me know in the comments down below if you'd like me to make a video about it. Zen Brig compositions will still be strong going into Overwatch 2, and as one of the most powerful compositions in the game, it is important that you understand it moving forward. If you have any questions, you can also join our Discord server of many players just like you and ask me questions when I am not live, link in the description. Moving on from win conditions, let's talk about positioning and playstyles on Brigitte. Different compositions are going to affect the way you play on Brigitte, but there are habits that you don't want to fall into, and that is being way too aggressive as well as being way too defensive. A common way people look at characters in Overwatch is as offensive or defensive characters, and while their priorities may be lopsided, they will never adhere to only one spectrum. Sure, Brigitte excels at protecting her team, specifically her backline partner, but it isn't to say she can't be aggressive. Quite frankly, there are times where she has to be aggressive to deal damage and carry the game, allowing for her Zenyatta or Ana to take more advantageous positioning. This is the difference between someone that just plays Brig because she is good and a player that is extremely solid as Brig. Obviously, don't get carried away and feed, but if you have watched my Zen guide and my Zen gameplay, you will understand the importance of having a Brig player that understands when it is time to get aggressive and carry. Now, let's segue into the most important skill Brigitte players should know besides positioning, that's ultimate tracking. Since Brigitte is considered a main support, generally it is the Brig player's job to track ultimates. The reason this is at the end of the video rather than the middle is because we won't go in depth on this concept within this guide. This is due to the fact that this video is already projected to be around 20 minutes long, and I recently posted an in-depth guide explaining ultimate tracking, how to execute the skill, and the benefits that come along with it. If you are interested in learning or reviewing this concept, the link to the guide can be found in the description. Let's close it out by discussing incredible synergies with Brigitte's kit and then some takeaways. So what characters does Brigitte do extremely well with? Many of the support characters do extremely well with Brigitte, but some do better than others. Thus, the characters I suggest duoing with in ladder include Winston, Wrecking Ball, Diva, Tracer, Echo, Zenyatta, Ana, and Baptiste. Duoing with a Wrecking Ball, Diva, or Winston allows for the tank to form niche compositions that they may feel more comfortable on, like Double Bubble or Ball Diva compositions. It also can make your Diva's job easier as she won't have to peel for the backline as hard. Duoing with a Tracer or Echo allows for consistent healing for duels, creating aggressive advantages for your team. Lastly, playing with Ana, Baptiste, and Zenyatta gives your friendly support a lot more liberty within each and every game of Overwatch. That Smurf Tracer in your backline, well, she's not really a problem anymore with you if you have Brigitte, and I know we all hate Smurfs. So let's move on to the takeaways. For beginners, become comfortable with your kit on Brigitte and make sure that you are consistent with your whip shots. Don't get too aggressive and understand the game from the angle of your other support to keep them alive through each and every fight. For intermediate players, start thinking about how Brigitte fits into the composition you are playing and look to use your cooldowns to reflect the characters that surround you. Look for moments where you can get aggressive and allow for your team to take positions that would otherwise not be traversable. And lastly, for advanced players, practice your ultimate tracking and make sure you can translate ideas to your team quickly and effectively. Look for ways to push your limits and make your value known by blocking pulse bombs and canceling other ultimates with your bash. Understand how to use rally to swing fights aggressively and never miss a whip shot rotation. And with that out of the way, you have officially completed the PAS Certified Brigitte Guide. Practice makes perfect in learning every single hero within Overwatch. Be sure to watch Brigitte players to apply the things that you have learned today throughout the guide. These players include Violet and my personal favorite, Holy Shift Kid. I also need to learn the character for my collegiate team at Penn State. So if you are interested in my learning process, you can catch me live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If you've learned anything from this guide, please do like, share, and subscribe as it helps the channel out a ton. But until next time, guys, I've got to peace out and PAS out. I'll see you in the next one.